Kicking off, we have a wonderful guest. We've got two wonderful guests coming up this afternoon. The first one, um, you would have saw her, some of you, if you were lucky, in person in 2023 at the Franschhoek Literary Festival. She is the author of the international bestsellers The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which is shortlisted for the Commonwealth Book Prize and longlisted for the Booker. She wrote Perfect, The Love Song of Miss Queenie Hennessy, The Music Shop, and my personal favorite, and probably the book that saved me during lockdown, Miss Benson's Beetle, which went on to win the Wilbur Smith Adventure Prize. Her novels have sold 5 million copies worldwide, have been translated into 36 languages. And here this afternoon, live to tell us about her new novel, The Homemade God, is Rachel Joyce. So I want to see some hearts if you can. There we go. There's one. I want to see some hearts and welcome Rachel. Tell us about your new book.
Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to be amongst you, even if I am in England, and such a pleasure to be able to tell you about my new book, which is called The Homemade God. The Homemade God is about four very close adult siblings whose father is an artist famous for his semi-erotic pictures and who is now working on his great masterpiece. He's a difficult man, and the siblings' lives have always evolved around him, and they still do. Then, out of the blue, he announces he's marrying a young woman he's met online. The siblings are banjaxed. He whisks his new wife to the family summer house on the shores of Lake Orta, and 4 weeks later, he's found dead. There is no sign of the new painting, and there's no sign of a new will either. So, according to the laws of intestacy, his new wife will inherit more than half of everything. His children rush to Lake Orta to try and work out what has happened. But the young woman they meet is not at all what they expect. They've built up this complete fantasy as to who she might be, a kind of sex kitten or a grifter or worse. But she doesn't seem to be any of those things. So is she really the artist their father believed she was before she died? Or are her motives completely different? She keeps changing. And this in turn has the strangest effect on the siblings. They've always prided themselves on being really close as a family, but they now realize that beneath the surface there are these subterranean cracks that no one has ever spoken of. Some of them are in fact unsayable. They don't recognize the people they are becoming, let alone one another. Lake Orta is one of the smallest Italian lakes in Piedmont in northwest Italy. It's like a glass bowl with a tiny island in the middle, and it's surrounded by wooded mountains and hills. It's honestly the most exquisite place. And locals call it their well-kept secret because hardly anyone knows about it. It's here that the Homemade God plays out, set against the backdrop of a searing heat wave across Europe. It's about a family in that period of lawlessness after any traumatic event, but especially the death of a parent, when everything is up for grabs and nobody quite knows who they are anymore. It's about that kind of ragged, disjointed time when you're out of alignment. It's about the myths that we tell about our families, the ghosts that we carry, the role of the artist and the nature of art, as well as finding your individual path. Because it seems to me that every family has its own set of rules, its own kind of internal wiring. But what happens when that set of rules gets tested by an extraordinary event? Anything can happen. And in The Homemade God, it really does. Now, if this kind of sounds a little out of the mold for me as a writer, then that's right. This is, in fact, my 8th book. And I wanted to go in a new direction. So much has honestly changed in the last 13 or 14 years since I started writing The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and I have changed as a woman too. As the oldest of three sisters, I've been so interested in those complex, unspoken family dynamics, and yet all my protagonists, pretty much all of them to date, have been only children. But it's also a subject I've really been turning over in my mind for many years since the death of my father. This is many summers ago in France, when I had to go with my sisters to fetch his body home. And the thing that I really remember about that time is the sound of our flip-flops, that kind of slap, slap of rubber soles, as we did the ordinary things like going to the shop, going to the bank, but also these things that were so new and terrible to us, like going to the funeral parlor to see his body and the morgue. There's something about that sound that I think is so fragile and so brave and yet so universal too. It's the sound that opens the novel, because I came to associate it with the strangeness of that time, the kind of chaos and the intensity of it. Because in the end, family is everything, even when it falls apart.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you, Rachel. It's such a treat to have you here. The book sounds absolutely stunning. Monet could not stop talking about it ever since he's got, ever since he started reading it, and I think it's only going to be good things for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Right up. Next up, we have another special guest. He is the author of The Second Verse, that was his debut novel. He has followed it up with a brilliant new one called Canary. Just on The Second Verse, that was longlisted for the Sunday Times Literary Awards and was a winner at the South African Literary Awards. Here to tell us about his new book, Canary, is Onke Mazibuko. Let's see those hearts, eh? Hello, Onke. Okay, for president. I'm not sure if Onke is having a bit of technical difficulties there. Let's give him a second. Thank you for all the hearts. I should also mention that Penguin Random House just turned 10 years old. It's our birthday. So you can chuck in a few balloons or something in there if you want as well. Happy birthday to us. Yay. Oh, there we
Hi
go. That's
guys,
what
can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Hello. How are you?
I'm just having a bit of trouble with my video, but I am here,
I
so
I
just go ahead
figured.
and speak.
No, no, I've introduced you. I'm glad to hear your voice. I'm glad you're here. So I was just telling the crowd that your new book is here, Canary, coming in March. It's such a stunning thriller. I was wondering if you could maybe tell them a little bit more about yourself and the book as well.
Okay, thank you everyone, and hello to everyone, and thank you for having me here. Canary is my second novel, and I wrote this book just after COVID, so it was heavily influenced by the events that happened during COVID and also my experiences working in a state-owned company. And also with us South Africans last year moving towards 30 years towards democracy, I kind of reflected on some of the things that were happening in our country. So from things related to corruption, state institutions kind of failing us, and us being almost put through a horror show of things that are happening with municipalities, and just basically what it's like to live in a South African city in today's world. So I was really interested in what it takes to be a whistleblower and what kind of human being would actually go out of their way to risk everything that they've worked hard for in their life in order to do the right thing. So the story is set in Johannesburg, and it deals with the main character whose name is Maxon Daga, and he works in a state-owned company that buys arms for the South African government. And it's also a situation where he finds himself being bribed by overseas arms dealers And he also finds himself being hunted down by assassins that are dedicated to the ruling party and would do anything to silence him. But the main character is not a perfect human being. He's someone who also has a lot of secrets in his life. And the more he goes out of his way to expose the secrets that he's discovered, the more he risks revealing the things that are happening in his life. So I also wanted to write about a character that isn't the perfect kind of human being, because once again, I wanted to explore what it's like to deal with such an ethical dilemma and what it takes for a person to kind of risk their life in order to do the right thing. So my background is in psychology. I am a psychologist. So I was really interested in what happens to a person when they're going through a meltdown, because as you can imagine, whistleblowers don't have an easy existence. And in our country, they very often spoken about when they get assassinated. And most of us don't remember what it is that the person actually revealed. So the book really looks at what happens inside this person's life as things go from bad to worse. And he struggles through this decision that he's made, and he watches his relationships falling apart, and he watches the company that he's revealed kind of making his life even more problematic than it already is. And as I say, I think for me, it was really important to kind of tell the story from a normal South African's point of view, and kind of asking the question to the reader of what would you actually do if you were in the same situation. So I really enjoyed writing this. It was part of my PhD in creative writing at the University of Pretoria. So there was a lot of research that went into understanding whistleblowers. I did a lot of readings on whistleblower autobiographies, and also understanding, investigative journalism, especially around the things that have happened in state institutions. So for me, it was a great journey because of the amount of research that went into it, and then kind of bringing it out as a human story for an ordinary person, for the reader to kind of engage with and put themselves in the same situation that he finds himself in. So I thank Penguin Random House for the opportunity once again for helping me put this book out there, and I really hope that the readers enjoy it.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, we can't wait for this book in March. It's fantastic. I think we can only expect good things to come from this one. So thank you so much for coming here and speaking to our lovely booksellers and readers out there in the media about your new book. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, that was our two special guests. I'm sure you will agree with me that both those books sound absolutely amazing. They are almost on our doorstep, so we're almost close to releasing them. And I hope that when they are there, you'll give it all the love that you can. Thank you very much. Right, the next one, the first book that I want to talk about is this book here. You might remember Emma Sadler. She wrote two books with us. The first one was in 2014. In 2014, she did a book called "Don't Film Yourself Having Sex," which she co-authored with Lizzie Harrison. 3 years later, we did "Selfies, Sex, and Smartphones: A Teenager's Online Survival Guide." And I think, if we're honest, it's more for everyone these days. I think these books have become even more important in the age that we live in. This new book. She's teamed up with Rock Wilson, who considers himself an elder Gen Z, so he sort of knows what's happening in this landscape as well. So I thought it was really smart to bring someone like him into this book. This book will cover all the major issues that teenagers face in our digital age, which is new laws, all the new apps, cyberbullying, sexting, sextortion, addiction, internet safety, pornography, deep fakes, mental health, privacy, reputation, and so forth. Obviously, AI is on our doorstep, so that as well is in there. Online shopping, all these things. There's so many great pieces of information that you can get from this book in terms of navigating the online space. Like I said, we published Emma ages ago. Her books keep doing really, really well. They keep selling. So this one is no better. This one will do just as well, I think. So remember, when you look at the modern system and the digital landscape, it's evolved at such a rapid pace. And like I said, AI is going to come in, and that's already causing certain issues. But there's AI, there's deep fakes, mis and disinformation, virtue signaling. So all these things are covered in this book. So I think this is a really, really important book for our time. And I think that your readers will love this one.
Hey, me. I haven't spoken since this whole thing started.
Yeah, I realize that now.
Yeah, I was just so in awe of those two. I mean, it's so lovely to hear from Rachel and Anki. I mean, just fabulous people and just fabulous authors. And if you haven't read their books, where have you been? What have you been doing with your life? Just from me, just yay, 10 years. We're 10, not in high school yet, but getting there. I guess our CEO gave this great speech on Tuesday about all these interesting facts and all that stuff. I think the one that got to me was we invoiced 3 million books last year, of which 1.5 million was local books. I think that was quite a staggering number. So yeah, it was quite nice to hear those figures. There are a lot more, but I won't bore you with those figures. For me, I want to talk about JoJo. She released this book for us last Saturday. It's called We All Live Here. I mean, JoJo is every year, she does a book every 2-3 years. And every time she does that, she always ends up, top 5, top 3, maybe even top author of the year. And she does deserve it. She's written books like Me Before You, Giver of Stars, and most recently Someone Else's Shoes. Thank you, Hadley. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But more than what I want to talk about, more than I want to talk about JoJo, I want to talk about Lila Kennedy, who is the main character of this book. And she is not having a good time. She's not having a good day. She's not having a good week. She's not having a good month. It's been a couple of months. It's not going well. First thing that happens is she publishes a book. You might think this is a great thing, and she does too. She publishes a book about how to have a successful marriage. That sounds cool. 2 weeks after the book is published, her husband leaves her for another one of the school moms that her kids go to school with, and she has to still do those school runs. But she doesn't have time to be annoyed by this or hurt by this, or because she's got 2 kids. She's got a 15-year-old daughter. She's got an 8-year-old daughter. They require care. They have to be kept alive. Her upstairs bathroom keeps breaking, and in really visual ways, and plumbers keep trying to bullshit her on what's wrong with it, and want to overcharge her. Her mom has just died, and her father-in-law has just moved in with her in a place that is set up for 3 people. There are now 4 people. It really isn't going well. And then her estranged father, that she hasn't really spoken to in 35 years, left them all for Hollywood. I imagine him to be, he wanted to be Steve Tyler from Aerosmith 35 years ago, and he still thinks he's Steve Tyler right now, and he's not at the age where he should be wearing Steve Tyler stuff. I imagine him to be that person. And Lila, out of the kindness of her heart, eventually invites him in for a night, a week. You know where the story is going. It's a story about 2 things for me. Firstly, blended families. I think we all have an experience of that. There's this amazing scene where Lila's daughter hears her talking to her ex-husband, and the daughter hears something that she doesn't love, so she runs to her room, slams the door, and Lila just goes and sits outside the door, asks, "Can I come in? Can I come in? Can I come in?" Daughter puts on loud music, ignores her for like 10 minutes. Lila sits there, music goes off eventually, and then Lila says, after having sat there for a good few minutes, she says, "Look, I have a sleeping bag, I have a thermos, and I have a lot of mint cake, so I can stay here until Thursday." And that just spoke to me in terms of like what families go through, as single parenting, whether you are blended in whatever way you are. This is what JoJo gets right. If you speed read her, you'll miss these moments. They are completely real moments done in such a gentle and kind way. They really speak to you. So blended families is the one thing, and then forgiveness. This dad is not forgiving of, well, he's probably not deserving of forgiveness according to any rate or scale that you might have. But the message that I get from the book is even those people, and we all maybe have those people in our lives that we can't forgive or won't. Even those people, if you could get to that point, they might actually be able to teach you something about life, love, the universe, and everything. It's a fabulous book. I know it's going to do very well. It's a good read. Still pretty light, still escapist. I think you're going to have a lot of fun selling it.
Sounds amazing, Monet. It's going to be great.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I've been a political columnist for many years, and in many ways, this has stood me in great stead for writing An Act of Murder, dealing with very rich, unaccountable people trying to cover up their misdeeds by lying very badly. But of course, this book is a wonderful new departure for me, away from column writing into fiction, and specifically cozy crime. And I'm very excited to share it with you and the rest of the world later this year. Very briefly, our main character, Arnold Prinsloo, is a man in very much the wrong place at the wrong time. His career and relationship are very much on the skids, and when he is found with the murdered body of an insurance tycoon, things go rapidly from bad to worse for him. I've been asked to suggest why this will be a good read. Feels a little bit like speed dating, but here I go. Firstly, the characters. I like these characters enormously. I hope you do too. Arnold Prinsloo is an unusual detective in a detective story, and that he's not actually a detective. He is a man full of foibles and character traits that you and I might recognize in ourselves. He's surrounded by a cast of characters that I hope run the gamut of a certain kind of South African that we all know. Secondly, the plot. I had great fun working it out, the twists and turns. I hope there are enough red herrings and dead ends and double backs to keep you guessing. But it's very much a nod to the sort of golden age of whodunits, the Poirot era. And finally, the tone. Cozy crime allows one to have high stakes. A person has been murdered. The stakes for Arnold are certainly very, very high. But at the same time, one can have lightness, humor, comedy. And I've really enjoyed mixing the two. So I hope I've found a good mix of tension and lightness that will keep a reader both guessing and entertained. So that's An Act of Murder coming out later this year, and I hope you enjoy reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed reading it, guys. This is such a fresh breath of air in the reading landscape. Is Tom Eaton. It's, as he said, it's cozy crime. It's quick, but for me, the main thing about this book is the main character, Arnold Vosloo. He's such an endearing character. He's a thespian. He's an actor, but drama seems to follow him right off the stage into his life, and that's sort of what his partner, his girlfriend cannot handle as well. So he's so hilarious. I should tell you a little bit more about in the book. I really don't want to sort of ruin that for you, but just this one thing. Arnold gets this job to perform a particular Shakespearean play at this very wealthy guy's house, and his name is Arnold Prinsloo, but when they invited him to come and do this, they thought they were getting Arnold Vosloo. And when he finally shows up there, it's a bit embarrassing and sad for him because his career was already on a sort of downslope. And now he gets this gig, and he has this terrible agent as well who didn't tell him about this for 3 months. He had known about it for 3 months and then says, you've got a gig. I've set this thing up. If you think about Ricky Gervais's agent in Extras, that's sort of what this guy reminded me of. But Arnold Prinsloo is such a character. He leaves this book so open in the end. We have 2 more in this series coming. Hopefully, we'll get those in the next couple of years. And he's exciting for us on the local landscape. Really exciting. So I hope you get a chance to read it and enjoy it. There will be more to come from him.
Someone just said in the comments, I'd read his shopping list.
Yeah.
Hello, South Africa. I'm Dr. Julie, and I'm here to tell you about my new book, Open When. Open When is a book for life's twists and turns, when being human starts to get complicated. When life gets messy and confusing, as it does for everyone, most of us struggle to be the voice that we need to hear. the voice that helps us find the best way to look at things and reminds us to start taking steps forward. So this is the book for us all. For ourselves when we need a way through, for our children as they fly the nest, and for our friends that live out of reach, and also for our family when we can't find the words to say for them.
I love her. I want to be her best friend and listen to her talk all the time. Dr. Julie Smith is a phenomena. She started a few years back by I mean, she's a qualified psychologist. She has a couch, I assume, and people would get there and they would lie down and they would share their stories, as one does. And she would give them little life hacks, nothing spectacular, little tools, just to. And the most common phrase was, "Why has nobody ever told me this before?" from the patients. And that hit home with her, and that's why she wrote the book, Why Has Nobody Ever Told Me This Before? That's been out 3.5 years. Last year, it was in the top 20 of psychology and self-development in South Africa, which is one of the most lucrative and one of the only sections that's growing in terms of quantity in our market. So that says a lot about whatever you want to say about it, about South Africans, and but certainly there's a big fan base for Dr. Julie Smith. But she was finding people were coming up to her and saying, "I love this book and I'm using it for this," and she was going, "But that's not why I wrote Why Has Nobody Ever Told Me This Before?" So what is the difference between Open When and Why Has Nobody Ever Told Me This Before? She writes in her intro about a hurricane. When you live in a hurricane area, you prepare your house. You board up the windows. You make sure the cellar is stocked with those little can things. Before you make sure stuff can't break. You nail things down. That's why has nobody ever told me this before. Like preparing for some kind of trauma, strengthening yourself mentally. Open when the last thing people want when a hurricane hits is for someone to come into their house, have opened the door and says, you really should have prepared better. That's not what people want. They want you to show them this is the way out. That is open when. When you are experiencing trauma, fear, grief, all of those things, this is the book you want. So any traumatic thing you're going through, this book will probably be able to at least guide you in the right direction. I absolutely love her. She is as big on social media as you can ever see, and you can see she is a genuinely kind person. Every chapter starts with this heartfelt letter. If you read nothing else, read those letters. You will love her as much as I do. And I mean, we could all do with some kindness and some genuine understanding in this world. And I think this is what this book brings.
Hey guys, I'm Ollie Swart, a chef from Cape Town. This is my first cookbook, Freestyle Cooking. It's super cool. It's got some of my favorite recipes in it. It's also got QR codes to playlists so you can listen to music along the way, and really cool QR codes to videos. It's super interactive. The book has 6 different chapters, just different parts of my life. What about let's scan through this thing. Look at that. Nice, simple recipes, easy to cook, everyday meals.
We would like to introduce you to a new face on the South African cookery scene, Chef Ollie Swart. If you haven't picked him up yet, he's got a huge online following. If you picked him up on Instagram or YouTube, you'll get an idea of what he's about. He's well trained. He's a really well trained chef. But what he does is make delicious food. That's the bottom line. You reminded me a little bit of early Jamie Oliver. He makes everything from burgers to pastas, curries and tacos, Vietnamese, American, Chinese food, Italian, Greek, you name it, it's in there. Like you said, it's broken down into like different chapters. So chapters are naughty foods, aromatics, boozy foods, spicy and bougie. So there's something in there for everyone. The recipes are really easy to put together, simple ingredients, as you can see. Nice layout. I think our lifestyle team is a world-class team, and they do such a great job with every single one of our cookbooks. So when we managed to get him, we were so excited. So I hope you love it. As you can see, freestyle cooking with Chef Ollie is the new rage. So let's see where we go.
Hallo, ek is Elizabeth Wasserman, die skrywer van Mevrou Smit, 'n lekker leesreeks wat jou sal laat vergeet van alledaagse probleme soos politiek en verkeersknope. In die eerste boek het ons heldin leer ken as 'n vrou wat haar deur niks laat stuit nie. Sy moes vlug om die wraak van gevaarlike bendebase te ontduik, 'n gedaanteverwisseling ondergaan, 'n moord oplos en 'n nuwe lewe begin op Arendspoort. In die tweede boek skep sy nes op Arendspoort ten spyte van die inwoners se besware. Juanita van die toeristekantoor beplan 'n historiese filmfees op die dorp en die ou films bring ongure geheime in Arendspoort se verlede aan die lig. En wie sou kon raai dat oom Apie in sy jeug ook 'n filmster was? Die verlede haal die hede in en dan is daar nog 'n moord. En dit terwyl dit lyk asof die ding tussen haar en Dr. Thomas dalk nou uiteindelik vlam kan vat. Mevrou Smit het haar eie reëls vir goeie gedrag en Arendspoort sal nooit weer dieselfde wees nie. Geniet die boek.
Vandag is ek baie opgewonde om met julle te gesels oor my nuwe boek Knal. Knal is die 5de Nikkie de Wee speurverhaal. En in hierdie verhaal kom Nikkie vir die eerste keer te staan voor die vraag, gaan sy dit maak? Is dit die einde vir haar? In terme van haar lewe nie, in terme van haar loopbaan nie. Nikkie ondersoek 'n saak waar die reeksontvoerder en vermoedelik reeksmoordenaar deur die media gedoop word tot die klokkespeler. En die klokkespeler, wat hy doen is, wanneer hy 'n vrou ontvoer of wanneer hy 'n liggaam agterlaat, dan los hy klokkies by die liggaam. En hulle probeer uitwerk, maar waaroor gaan dit? Dan verdwyn Stella Jansen, die fotograaf wat deel van Nikkie se span is. En nou word die span gekonfronteer met die vraag, maar hoor hierso, het Stella self verdwyn of is Stella ontvoer? Hulle ondersoek lei hulle na die Oos-Kaap en daar wys hierdie klokkespeler, hy is in staat tot die allerverskriklikste dade en hy is bereid om self sy eie huis op te blaas. So daar's groot ontploffings, daar's jaagtogte, daar's soektogte, daar's gruisame ontdekkings en dan word Nikki ontvoer. En Nikki weet nie of sy genoeg tyd het, of die span haar betyds gaan kry, of sy haarself betyds uit hierdie situasie gaan kry, en of sy dit gaan oorleef nie. Ek gaan nie verder vir julle vertel nie. Al wat ek net kan sê is, nie almal van die ondersoekspan maak dit tot aan die einde van die boek nie.
That's just mean. Someone's going to die, but we're not allowed to know who.
They did a great job with the cover.
I mean, it is probably the tactful thing to do, right? No spoilers.
Yeah. Absolutely, no spoilers. It is a stunning cover.
My name is Milton Shaw. I'm an author, an actor, and an addict. My journey with addiction started at the age of 12. Started with stealing, porn, cigarettes, marijuana, paint thinners, Mandrax, LSD, ecstasy, cocaine, crack, heroin, meth. I used from the age of 12 to 25, and for the last 19 years I've been sober and working a program of recovery. I used drugs because I did not feel like I am enough. And drugs, at least for a time, drugs took that feeling away. I have discovered in recovery that I am enough, but secondly, that if I want to feel like I'm enough, I have to face the thing that hurt me in the first place. Join me for Addict, a tale of drugs and recovery, out March 2025.
This was such a tremendous read, guys. I cannot tell you how good it is. It's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. It's lighthearted in certain places. He's so honest. And one of the things that struck me most about this book was how well he can sort of write the story out and how simple he brings it to you. So it's one of those books you'll pick up and not be able to put down. It's truly one of those ones. You just want to know what happens next. And the childhood that he had is just heartbreaking. And you know, for him to go through all this and come out the other side is just an amazing tale. So it's, for me, it was a big tale. It was a story of hope, and I think that's very positive. I can't wait for you to read it. When I read it, I thought about Melinda Ferguson's Smacked. I thought about a book called Acid Alex, which I read a long time ago. So this one sits up right up there. It's really a great read at the end of the day. So even if you're not someone looking for something in this genre, I promise you it'll be a good read. So pick it up if you get a chance.
I eat my peas with honey. Yes, that keeps them on the knife. Hi, I'm Carmini, and I won the second season of MasterChef South Africa. I was also the host of a Netflix broadcast food travel show called Girl Eat World, and I'm currently one of the chefs on Ready Steady Cook. So, in my spare time, I am a runner, I practice yoga, I am a health and nutrition coach. I've just got a master's degree in psychology, and I'm probably the #1 certified crazy dog lady. There are worse things. So we're here to talk about my book. All dolled up, everyday Indianish good mood food. I'm really chuffed with it. This is a collection of recipes that has got a throwback to my South African Indian heritage. It also includes ingredients and techniques that I've learned throughout my travels in the world. My food is conscious of the modern lifestyle. I understand that we all would like to cook for ourselves but don't have a lot of time. I know that we want to eat more vegetables and we'd like some ideas on how to. And that food can be medicine for your mind, your body, and we've known it's been the medicine for the soul for a long time.
And yet another exciting author on the cookery list this year. As it's not much more I can add to that. I will tell you, I've done the taste test, so to speak. I've seen some of the flavors that she uses in there. Me being Indian as well, she's taken really good sort of recipes, ingredients, and she's mashed it all up in a very modern twist. But there's also a few things which I could totally recognize. So I think if you have a look at it, if you are familiar with these flavors, you'll see what I mean. But even if you're not, that's okay. It's just delicious food at the end of the day. So very exciting things to come from Kamini Patha. This book is just astounding. Really, really nice. That's some of the spreads for you. We always try. I mean, you can see, as I said, our lifestyle team is world class, and when they put these together, so much goes into it. So enjoy. I hope you pick it up.
Love it.
Yeah.
Something else that I love. So a bit of background. Every year around July, which is we call budget time, where we try and plan the next year's list. What happens is basically from all over, from the US, the UK, from local, we get as many manuscripts of books as we can, samples, and the product team, which is about, I think, about 6 or 7 of us, and a few of the marketing folks help us out. Thank you. Try and read as much as we can. That's hundreds of thousands of words. It's a big job, someone has to do it. But you try and be cognizant of the little breakout gems, and we feel that this is one of them. The reason I'm saying this is we have a group on Teams where we talk about these things as people read them. This was, in terms of breakout books, this one was mentioned 23 times by different people in that group. Besides that, I actually love it, so I get to talk about it. The comps were Stardust Sea, Erin Morgenstein, Stardust, the obvious one, When the Coffee Gets Cold, and Little Prince, because this to me is as close to a fantasy fable as you can get. I don't want people to think this is Lord of the Rings. This is a fable to me. This is the way it feels to me. So imagine you're walking in Tokyo. I can't imagine that, but I am going to try. And you're walking past a ramen restaurant, and suddenly you have the urge, just go in. You have a craving for ramen. You open the door. The restaurant's gone. Suddenly you're in this kind of dodgy pawn shop, and there's a guy, and you can clearly see his daughter. Guy's called Toshiwa Ishikawa, and his daughter's called Hana. What you found is a pawn shop, not an ordinary pawn shop. You found a pawn shop that takes your biggest regret, should you want to part with it, and makes you forget about it. Now, that's a very bittersweet thing. For instance, there's a guy, they talk about an author, well, a wannabe author who he was killing it with his manuscript. He was 2/3 of the way through, and then he just hit writer's block, not for weeks or months, for years. And he just couldn't do it. And his whole life fell apart because he couldn't finish this book. It was his one big regret. Finds his way into the pawn shop, and he eventually decides to part with it. He forgets about it. And his life is better because of it. It's bittersweet. It's a bit of a sad moment, but you feel good for him because his life is sorted out. The thing is, Toshiwa, the dad, is passing the job to Hana. And on the first day where Hana has to start, she wakes up in the morning, she walks down the stairs, and the pawn shop is ransacked. Her dad is gone, clearly. She's in a panic, she's trying to find him, and things get worse because in walks her very first client, a guy called Minotozaki Keishin, who is a physicist. Now, a physicist, mythical pawn shop. These two things do not belong in the same sentence. But I won't go too long into it. But Minotozaki, being the kind and questioning person that he is, decides to help Hana to try and find her father. Firstly, because he wants to understand, and secondly, because he sees a person in distress, and that is what good people do, according to him. And so they go on this quest through this fable. There's paper cranes, there's cities, there's night markets in the sky. It's this beautiful imagery. You can see from that jacket where this is going. It's someone said on Goodreads, it's a daydream inside a fairy tale, which I think is really good. I think we use the word whimsical in publishing way too much. I'm going to use it for once and actually flip and mean it as much as I ever have. This book is whimsical. This book is a magical, magical journey. I hope you love it as much as we do, and please tell us if you read it. Send us an email or drop anyone a text if you love it as much as we do. So I see Amara's on the call. It's a bit intimidating. So guys, first off, admission, safe space. I have read many Emily Henrys, but because we are product managers, we do what we call the 100-page test. I've read all the Emily Henrys that we've published, done the 100 pages, then I put it aside and I go, I'm going to finish this eventually down the line. And then, like with many other books, we actually don't get to it because there's so many books to read. This is the first Emily Henry that I finished, and I am shocked at myself that it's taken me this long. And that's because Amara, one of our reps, who is on the call, you might have seen her comment, pitched this at our sub call, and she had us. She put a whole sales team. We were completely quiet, which has happened, I think, 3 times in the 12 years that I've been with this company. This is fantastic, and Amara, I'm going to use your notes for this because I believe that they are great. So we think there are 2 types of Emily Henry books. There's the Hallmark movie books, book lovers, kind of romance light, nice and fluffy. It's really, there's a lot of value in that stuff. Pure escapist. That's cool. Then you have something with just that little bit more substance, with that heart. And that is A Great Big Beautiful Life. I mean, how's that title? Isn't that one of the best titles? Essentially, you meet Alice Scott, who is a journalist who is looking for, I kind of want to say her idol, a Hollywood socialite who's been in and out of the news for about 35 years, called Margaret Ives. No one really knows about about her life. She was married to, for instance, the poor man's Elvis. That kind of story. You can obviously draw the comps between Taylor Jenkins Reid, Evelyn Hugo, and Margaret Ives, but Margaret Ives stands completely on her own. She's a very, 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 she's a beautiful character. Eventually, Alice finds Margaret Ives. She's one of the first, but then she has to vie for the opportunity to write Margaret's biography with a Pulitzer Prize-winning author called Hayden Anderson. Now, guys, it's still Emily Henry. There's obviously a love connection between Alice Scott and Hayden Anderson. But there's 2 narratives here, and that is a beautiful narrative. But the other narrative of Margaret telling us about her life is quite special. The way she relates being utterly, like, decadently rich and completely alone as a child growing up, and how that forms her life, and how that relates to Alice and Hayden, how they all feel alone, and how I think a lot of the readers feel alone. It just shines through in this book. If you haven't read Emily Henry, there are proofs. I think they've just landed. If you're on the fence about it, get a proof somewhere, read 2 pages of the Margaret Ives narrative, and I pretty much guarantee you'll be in, no matter who you are. I'm very excited about this. We need more stories like this. She is one of our biggest TikTok authors, but it doesn't matter about all those things. This is a great, fantastic story. I really loved it, and I hope you do too.
I always get to present Harlan Coben, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, and I think you all agree, and you all know Harlan always delivers. He always has great books out. This is the follow-up to Fool Me Once. If I could just remind you, this is the one where this woman's husband gets murdered, and she thinks he's dead. And it turns out, after looking at something on a baby cam, that he's still alive. Now, if you remember that story, there was a detective in that book by the name of Sammy Kies. Sammy Kies is the main character in this book. So this is his story. It starts off in Spain 20 years ago, 25 years ago. He's a young man. He's partying it up in Spain. He meets this young woman named Anna. They spend a few weeks together. After a night of partying and drinking, which is what they do for days on end there, he gets up, he's lying in his bed, his eyes sort of just open up to the day, and he's sort of got his hand over his face, and he realizes something sticky and wet in his hand. So he moves it apart, his eyes adjust, and it's blood, and there's a knife. And next to him is Anna, and she is dead. So fast forward 25 years later, he's become a detective and been kicked off the force in a very shameful manner. He's now doing night classes with people, just on the side, just to make some extra money. He looks to the back of the class that he's holding, and he sees this woman there. He sort of recognizes her, but doesn't. And then he looks at her and he realizes that that's Anna. That's the young woman that he met 25 years ago. So he runs up after her. She sort of gets away. He finds out where she lives, and the mystery goes from there. So it's Harlan Coben at his best. Quick, fast-paced thriller, lovely characters, very, very funny, lots of cool pop references. You can't go wrong with the Harlan Coben. And I say this in all the presentations that we do. You read one, you become a fan instantly. Even if you look at some of the stuff that Netflix have done with his books and made them into great series, they're all such winners. They're always in the top 10. So yeah, he's a winner. There's more to come from him, and I hope that you pick this one up. Fantastic read.
Yeah, I mean, just to say, as big as Harlan Coben is, and he is in terms of sales, he's as big as we get. But I know he's good. But then I finish the book, and then it's a year, and then you read him again, and you're like, I forgot how good he actually is.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those.
Anyway, like Viz says, he presents Harlan Coben. This is the hill I will die on. Until I get fired or kicked out of this company, I will present Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love her. I own all her books. I want to read all the books that she is yet to write. I just believe she is one of the best authors, and one of the most underrated authors, even with the level of fame that she has now. She's a one-sitting author. She is the definition of that. You don't get up once you start at Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this one is no different. It's set against the backdrop of the 1980s space program, where they first started inviting women to participate in space missions. And we meet Joan Goodwin in the first couple of pages. She's the main character. We mostly hear from her in terms of her narrative. You meet her in some of the most frantic first pages I've ever read in my life. Because she walks into Houston mission control at NASA. So when somebody from space in a movie says, Houston, we have a problem, she's Houston in this scenario. Okay. And the guys up in the sky have a problem. The guys up in the sky also happen to be her only friends. 5 astronauts who are there to put satellites into Earth's orbit. Pretty routine mission, but everything goes wrong. And by the time Joan hits mission control, most of them are unconscious except for one person. And she is only in contact with one person. And she has a few hours to get these people from space to Earth. Otherwise, pretty much everyone she loves will be dead. It's a nice wading in. That's 15 pages. And through there's 2 narratives. There's the couple of hours where she has to problem solve like nothing I've ever seen. And then through these hours, she looks back at her life. How did she get there? She was a professor, was quite happy, but then she saw an ad where they said they'd love to get women working on the NASA programs, potentially going to space. She applies, and lo and behold, she gets in, and she gets put through the most rigorous training I've read in a book in quite a while, and she meets these candidates. And as you read the narrative and you meet these candidates, you go back to those first 15 pages and you go, oh shit, is this guy dead? Is he alive? Is this person still? So all those people she meets is in the first 15 pages, and you don't know if they are actually alive. So there's this tension that just keeps on building. It's a great story. It's different to what she's written before. It doesn't feel different, but this is a different story she's trying to tell. But it is at its core still a love story. And she says it's the first one she's written in a while. It's probably not the one you think it is, though. So please do read the book. I did want to read you. So I'm biased, and you guys know this. So I wanted to read you two things. Firstly, a Goodreads review, short one, that I think just sums this up brilliantly. So it starts off with, an astronaut love story by Taylor Jenkins Reid was not on my bingo card for 2025. But let's give it a whirl, shall we? That's part one. Then a day later, it's updated. Upon finishing the book, I can't swear, so I will bleep this out. I have never ever been this up by a book. I cried so hard and so long for the last 10%, I almost feel angry at having been taken through the ringer like this. This is a love story that will stay with me for a long time. It's pretty perfect. I couldn't have said it better. And then I just wanted to leave you with, and I hope this stays in the final book. Taylor Jenkins Reid does a letter in the beginning where she talks about where she got the inspiration. And she talks about how she stood outside one day and looked up at the sky with her 8-year-old daughter one night. And they were looking at the stars, and the daughter was picking out all the constellations. And she ends with, I hope very much that you enjoy this story. But I hope even more that Joan Goodwin can convince you to go outside tonight after the stars have come out and look up. I hope with all my heart, Joan can convince you to be open to wonder. She's a brilliant writer. I cannot recommend her enough, but you've heard enough from me. Please go read the book.
The exciting thing about the book, for myself and Jeff Nichols and Andrew Hankey, is to show South Africa and to show the world what amazing indigenous garden plants we have. For any gardener anywhere. But we're giving the full range of plants, all of which have been grown and made available through nurseries in the country. Perhaps not all available right now, but hopefully nurserymen will be excited by this book, because gardeners are going to be hugely excited. How can you resist these plants? We have about 2,300 species here. It gives a scientific name, it gives a common name for every plant. It tells you how big it grows, where it grows best, and advises you where it won't grow. So for me, this is a book about the plants. It's incredibly exciting to see it. It's a completion of 10 years' work. That isn't the point. The point is this absolutely amazing book with these wonderful plants. I hope everybody will enjoy them.
Guys, this is a monumental publication for us. It is so big. If you've seen the book, if you're in stores, reps will come around and show it to you. It is absolutely stunning. It's huge. I needed a trolley to move it around the other day. It's too big. So as it says there, South Africa is a biodiversity hotspot. We've got all the right elements for many, many species to thrive. This book has 2,400. All 2,400 of them broken down into the different categories. It's put together so well. There's a plant selector at the back. So if someone is looking to see what they need to plant in a specific area for a specific need, the plant selector will help you do that. The photography is amazing. The details in it are amazing. It's just a stunning book. Even if you're not a gardener, you want to have it on your coffee table. But if you if you, let's say you're not into gardening, you're probably going to get into it after this. It's a really, really great book. And I was telling the team when we initially sold it in, this is sort of the Cecil Birds of plants. This is what we're looking at here. 10 years in the making. It's a decade to put this together. So that should give you an idea of the magnitude of this book and how hard these people have worked to put it together. So please support it. There isn't any other book in the market, I can guarantee you, like this. So that's why this is so important. That is why this book is so important.
Hi, I'm Karen Mitchell. The High Treason Club tells the story of the Boeramag in its full scope for the very first time. So the Boeramag trial, it was 23 men who stood accused of high treason in 2003, and the trial ended in 2013, making it the longest running and most expensive criminal trial in South Africa's judicial history. It was also the very first high treason trial in a democratic South Africa, and it actually started in the same courtroom where the Rivonia trial took place. So just quickly, a quick recap on the Boeramag is most South Africans would think that they are white and Afrikaans and radical men, which is exactly what they were. But when you look deeper at the story, this group was very much driven by fear. It was early 2000s in the country. The country's democracy was still extremely young, and there was fear among the white population about what was going to happen to this country, what is going to happen to our minority population. And so they started religiously following the prophecies of a South African prophet known as Siener van Rensburg. And Siener had visions of a black on white onslaught in the country, and he said that this was going to happen upon the death of a black leader. Now, interpreting this, the Boeramag decided that they wanted to be in control of the chaos, so they were going to trigger the chaos by trying to kill Nelson Mandela, which they did, and nobody knew about it at the time. There was an attempt on his life when he was on his way to go and open a school in the Dzanine area in 2002, and the authorities only found out about this after the fact. So yes, they were definitely driven by the prophecies of Siener, and they wanted to restore the country to themselves. They considered themselves to be God's chosen people. So how did I get involved in the story? I was an intern journalist in 2011 when I got deployed to go and cover the trial and also to get a grasp on court reporting, and I certainly did. After being there for a few months, I managed to speak to accused number one in the case, who was considered a mastermind of the Boeramag. And I interviewed him in prison for at least 5 years. So the reader gets taken on this journey behind bars as well, but also it's about telling the entire story of how these men got involved with becoming part of the Boeramag, what drove them, how did it affect their families when they were awaiting trial prisoners for 10 years, some of them. So definitely a lot of layered stories in the Boeramag itself, but I am incredibly excited that South Africans can, for the first time, understand the full story of the Boeramag.
This is another really compelling read, guys. Okay, Tess Gerritsen, book number 2 in the Martini Club. You would remember this from the last one. The first book was called The Spy Coast. It was the start of a brand new series for Tess Gerritsen, something a little away from the Rizzolian Isles or even a standalone. It was really, really good. New series. I think that was really good start to it. So if you have read Spy Coast, you'll know what I'm talking about. So if you're a fan of sort of Richard Osman-ish kind of cozy crime, this was it. So the basic premise of this book is of the Martini Club. There are 4 people who are well into their 70s. They live in a little town called Purity, Maine. They are all ex-CIA, government ops, that sort of thing. But now they're sort of retired in a small town, thinking nothing could happen there. But obviously things start happening, people go missing, bodies are found, and so the Martini Club gets involved and they try and solve these murders. So Maggie is the main character. She's ex-CIA. She's total badass. She's a chicken farmer now, and that's what she does, but somehow she ends up in all these really interesting situations. So the second book in the series, The Summer Guests. If you are a fan, you're gonna love it. If you haven't read it, I suggest go back, pick up The Spy Coast, or even if you pick this one up, you can't go wrong. So it's a really, really cool new series by Tess Gerritsen.
I have gotten so many suggestions and comments and DMs about writing a book. For a guy who makes videos in his car, having this and holding this, I know it's because of you. None of this would be happening if it wasn't for you. So I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart. If any of my advice, if there has been any tip that I've given you that has been helpful, you're going to love this book. Inside of this book is my mindset, my framework for how I communicate, to say things with control, to say things with confidence, and to say it to connect. Thank you. I'm excited to share this with you.
So first off, I just want to say thank you very much to Abdia, who put this presentation together, who was able to sneak that video in at literally the last second. But I do think it's just so useful to see Jefferson Fisher. If you don't know who he is, I really want to recommend that you go on your Instagram as soon as you possibly can and just search Jefferson_Fisher and see what he does. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's a lawyer. You might not say that with the way he looks so authentic, the stereotype of a lawyer, all of that stuff. And he started a law practice. It wasn't going all that well, as I understand it. And he would go to his car, have lunch there, and he started making videos. Because the thing is, in his life, he's always been told one thing: he's a great communicator. No matter what he does, he's able to bring things across. He's able to listen well. He's able to bring the best out of people and have meaningful conversations. So he started doing little 30-second videos about little life hacks, how you can make someone respect your boundaries without saying, please respect my boundaries. You want to sound more sure of yourself, how to disagree without having a fight. It's things like that. He had 10, 20, I assume, followers. He's grown a bit, people. He now has 5.7 million followers. Now, for context, Dr. Julie Smith has just over 1 million. She's huge. Robin Sharma has 2 million. He's huge. Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO has 3.7 million on Instagram. 5.7 million. It was 5.6 on Monday, so he's constantly growing. And the thing is, like, this book is a big deal because this is the first time he's taken all his things and told you how to have a meaningful conversation. He uses the vehicle of the next conversation. So he says, we're all looking, there's that one conversation, that one person. You might have had a fight, or they said something that you didn't address, and you're really not looking forward to that next conversation. We all have those people and those conversations we're dreading, and we avoid them. He says you shouldn't avoid them. You should foster those conversations, because the next conversation you have can be the best conversation you have. And through this vehicle, he gives you little hacks. Like on his Instagram stuff, like how to be how to sound more assertive. This is a really cool one for me. You just take out the word just. I mean, so with that, you go, instead of going in an email, just checking in, you go checking in. Just following up, not being mean, you're just not taking out the word just. And my favorite line from him is, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify why you're saying no, you just say no. That's the kind of philosophy that he has. But someone asked me last night why would you buy this book instead of just following him on Instagram? Because this is his philosophy, his ethos that he talks about, but he can't explain it in those 30 seconds. This is about how to have, and I'm going to repeat this, have a meaningful conversation. No one wins an argument. No one wins at a conversation. This will teach you that ethos while giving you those little hacks, like start with why, getting to yes, never split the difference. It's those types of books. It's a life-changing book, and he's a brilliant author. I hope but we will need your help. These books don't just happen. So read it. If you love it, recommend it. That's all we ask.
Okay, I just want to quickly say to everyone in this room, thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking with us. And also thank you to your families for allowing you a little time out. I know it's getting close to supper time. Stick with us. We're almost there. We've got some great stuff on the way. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for hanging out. Now, I want to tell you about this one. So at the end of last year, I hit sort of one of those waves where I didn't need a palate cleanser. I was in a straight zone where I was just reading really good books. And one of the books that I've been parking for a long time was that book that's on the slide there, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I know what a great book that was. And I thought, it's time. I should read it. So I picked it up. I read it in a couple, it was not long, probably a couple of days. And Ocean Vuong, I know I'm talking to a room full of book lovers here. You know his powers. You know how good he is at what he does. And English is his second language. He's just so masterful in terms of how he puts books together. He was a very successful poet long before that book. But it shows in this book. Now, in On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and then in this one. I think he's gotten better. This book for me shows me that he's gotten better from the last book. I don't know how the guy can get any better than that book. It's just such a masterpiece. You probably know this, but sometimes when you read a book that's so good, you come to the last page, you read the last line, and then you close the cover. I had this thing where I sort of just freeze, where I don't know what to do with myself for like 10 minutes. I just sit there in the wave of this book, not knowing what to do. That's sort of what you're looking at here, like the first one. It's just one of those ones. I had that feeling when I read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, same sort of shocking effect. So this one is about two people, a young man named Hai and an old woman named Gratsina. She's about 82 years old. She suffers from dementia. It starts off on a bridge, and he's standing on this bridge in the middle of the rain, and he's there to commit suicide. And he's just looking out. He's looking out at the water, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he hears this woman shouting, and she shouts at him, and she says, "Don't do that, please, not now, not today." And somehow she coaxes him off this bridge, and she introduces herself, and he introduces himself to her, and it's this friendship that starts off, and he ends up taking care of her. So that was the start of the book, and it's all about connection and friendship and everything that Ocean Vuong stands for. It's a real masterpiece. I hope you guys pick it up and read it. Make it one of those books you have to read this year, this one. And if you haven't read On Earth We Briefly Gorgeous, you should go read that as well. I know you've been parking it off too long if you haven't already as well, because you know about it. So yeah, definitely one of my reads for the year. Huge one for us. This will be big everywhere in June when it comes out, so watch out for it.
Hello, I'm Sven Axelrad, and this is Zoe. She's blind now. If you have a minute, I would love to tell you about my new novel, The Nicotine Gospel. Instead of staring into the camera while I do this, I thought it might be nice to show you around my house. Okay, so The Nicotine Gospel is something a little different than Buried Treasure in God's Pocket. For starters, the story takes place in the 80s in my hometown of Durban. Here's the setup. When their mother dies, two brothers are left in the care of their father, who, in his grief, invents a new way to make sense of the world via cigarettes. The Nicotine Gospel is part religion, part fortune-telling, part madness, but it's the only way the boys know how to relate to their dad. Years later, the brothers will take a road trip from Durban to Cape Town to attend their father's funeral. This is a story of faith and of families, a story of cigarettes, moths, and child abuse. A story of bar fights, fate, lightning, nostalgia, music, and pancakes. Most of all, it is a story of the love that exists between brothers. All of my work is personal, but this one is very personal, and I think you're going to love it. My dad believed that you could tell everything worth knowing about a person by what cigarette they smoked. He taught this to my brother and me when we were only kids. That's how all of this started. In 1987, with a bolt of lightning and a pack of Lucky Strikes.
Do not miss this one, guys. I'm telling you, like I said, I came off Ocean Vuong, and then I read this. You have to read this one. It's absolutely amazing, and the writing is just beautiful. Really good. And we need to make Sven a star, because he is.
Yeah. Can I just say that is also, I mean, Sarita said it in the comments as well. That's also the best video. I mean, can we just, someone say to Sven Axelrad that that is the best video that I have seen in all my years of working. I mean, wow. Just, and this, and then his books are so amazing. We want to make him a really big deal all over the world.
Yeah. He deserves all the success.
Hi, my name is Tsiamo Mudisaini, and I am the author of I Am Tsiamo, a book that really documents my life, my journey, more specifically my transition, but rather focuses more on healing and self-discovery. What motivated me to write the book more specifically were the events that took place on September 24th, 2017, which was the last day I'd ever see my mother alive. And part of that was a conversation that her and I had, where her last words to me was her saying to me that she was proud of me and she was proud of the life I have lived. And 2 days after that conversation, she was no more. And fast forward to a few weeks after, you know, as you are grieving and mourning and making sense of everything, I had to ask myself if I was proud of the life I've lived. And I realized that I had lived a lie all my life, and that I actually owed it to myself to live my life authentically and in the most truest form as possible. I share all the good, the bad, the funny, the psyche of what happens or what plays in the mind of an individual who's, having to experience a transition. The theme, or rather what I'd want people to take away from this book, is that in life we're all faced with certain or specific transitions that we all go through. So for some people, it might be just having to transition from being a daughter to being a mother. Everyone has to go through a specific transition, and how we make it to the other side is very important. No one talks about the journey, and I think that is why I wanted to write the book, for other people who would maybe go experience the same kind of challenges that I have, but not know who to speak to, how to relate, or what is going on, and make sense of it. And I think this book is for them. This book is for those who have grown up feeling unwanted and living in the shadows. Your life matters and you are worth it, and you owe it to yourself to be yourself. Thank you.
Really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you for all the hearts.
John Boyne is a genius. Who's with me?
Absolutely.
Besides you first. And Amanda, I know Amanda's in there as well. From things like Ladder to the Sky, The Heart's Invisible Furies, Echo Chamber, which is, I think, what Schitt's Creek was meant to be, even though Schitt's Creek is really good. Traveler at the Gates of Wisdom, still one of the most ambitious novels of all time to me. And then he did the Elements series. This is the last book in the Elements series. In fact, I want to say the Elements literary universe. Who has read them? This is the fourth one: Water, Earth, Fire, and then Air. Who's been ready to read these books? It's been a life-changing experience for me to work with these things. The books tie into each other. All four. They're short. They're about 170, maybe 200 pages at the most each. They're basically novellas. And I'm going to say something that I never say. Yes, you can read them individually, and you absolutely will get a brilliant story. But if you want to get the genius that is John Boyne, you should start from number one and read all the way through. And in June this year, all four will be available. The books are about, they're gut punches. They are brutal, brutal gut punches of literary genius. They are about trauma and abuse, but not the victims specifically. They are about the people that perpetrate it and the people that stand by while these things happen. He challenges you. He makes you really uncomfortable in the best kind of way that only books can do. And this book, those of you that have read Fire will know a guy called Aaron Umber. He is the main character of this book. He is a little bit older. He has a son. He's divorced. And they get on a plane from Australia to somewhere in the UK, which I can't say because that features in one of the other books, and you'll know what I'm talking about if I say it. And they spend the next, you know how long that trip is, in the air. And Aaron has to come to grips with his past, what happened in Fire to him, and whether he is willing to share that with his son, because not sharing that has always held them back. They have a fine relationship, but there's a lot of things he can't say about what happened in the past. A lot of things he's hidden from his son, and a lot of things he's hidden in terms of where they're going and who they're going to see and what that actually means. That's the kind of book this is. It's a examination of like action and consequence in, I think, the most beautiful way. Again, in our subcall on Monday, somebody said, one of our reps, he was presenting this, and he's usually quite a tame, doesn't really get massively excited. He said, I think we should be massively proud about publishing this book. And we are proud of everything we publish. This is one of those books where it's a work of art. It really is. If you read these 4 things, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Be ready for it, but be ready to be blown away by the magnificence of these books.
If you own an air fryer, stop scrolling now. Lots of us have one, and what I find really exciting is how much you can actually cook in them. I wanted to experiment to create easy dishes that deliver big on flavor and deliciousness. And because I am so pleased with the results, I've written a cookbook, which is out on the 30th of January. Here it is, Easy Air Fryer. You'll find all the quick fixes that come in handy during the week, but also some surprise chapters like A Little Bit Fancy, which is full of impressive looking but surprisingly easy dishes like this Kerala style chicken. There's so much you can do in an air fryer. Look at these beautiful cherry chocolate pots. So delicious and quick. Easy Air Fryer is available to pre-order now.
Hallo julle, ek is Rian Grobler en die skrywer van Hospitaal Weltevreden. Dit is my tweede roman na die suksesvolle blitsverkoper vir my heel eerste roman Geheime op Philadelphia. Ek is verskriklik opgewonde oor hierdie boek want ek wil nog altyd 'n hospitaalstorie skryf. Dit speel af in 'n fiktiewe hospitaal, Hospitaal Weltevreden wat in Pretoria is en dit handel oor 3 hoofkarakters wat se stories in mekaar gevleg is. Nou, die eerste karakter is Annemart Kokemoer. Nou, sy is 'n noodeenheidsspesialis en haar ma Beatrice het vir haar uit haar armoede uit, hulle het in Danville groot geword, en sy het haar uit haar armoede uitgehelp, omdat hierdie kind van haar hierdie ongelooflike potensiaal gehad het, om iets te bereik in die lewe. Sy het 8 onderskeidings gehad in matriek, en sy wil graag 'n dokter word, maar as gevolg van die armoede waarin hulle gelewe het, was dit nie moontlik nie. So Beatrice het alles in haar vermoë gedoen, om hierdie kind 'n dokter te laat word, en dis wat Annemart toe geword het. Die tweede storielyn gaan oor Louise, Annemart se boesemvriendin, Louise Terdu. Sy is 'n onkoloog, maar wat hierdie onkoloog anders maak is, sy glo net in wit en swart. Sy het geen gryslyne nie, sy maak ook dit glad geen geheim, dat sy nie in die Here glo nie. Nou, wat haar storie so interessant maak, moet julle nou maar verder lees, maar sy het 'n pasiënt, Petru, wat vir haar so bietjie toets met haar geloof en vir haar vra oor wat die Here is, wie die Here is en hoekom sy net in wit en swart of dan nou net in wetenskap glo. Dan is daar Rensha. Rensha is die hospitaal se sielkundige en sy het 'n baie moeilike pasiënt, Sean Pretorius. Nou Sean Pretorius maak vir haar die lewe baie moeilik, want dan het hy 'n meisie, dan het hy nie meer 'n meisie nie, hy sien haar vir 1 jaar en 'n half, hy's depressief en hy sien haar elke week. Maar sy begin geskenke kry. Nou daar's 'n baie aantreklike dokter wat in Hospitaal Weltevreden werk. Hy is die dokter se die hospitaal se hartspesialis en hy maak die verpleegers en dokters se knieë lam. En het hy oë of maak hy oë vir Rensha? Hy self staan op skei en skielik begin Rensha geskenke kry. En sy's verskriklik opgewonde want Marlou begin vra geskenke kry. Een oggend kom sy by die werk, sy kry 'n harde hout in die kop en sy word wakker in 'n plek wat sy glad nie ken nie. Waar is sy? Wie is saam met haar en hoekom sy ontvoer? Alles binne in Hospitaal Weltevreden. Kyk vir die karakters, jy gaan lief word vir van die karakters, jy gaan van die karakters haat en natuurlik is daar baie goeie storielyn. So kry Hospitaal Weltevreden nou landwyd beskikbaar, uitgegee deur Doeka Uitgewers.
Hello, South African retailers and booksellers. I am Mary Watson, and I'm so excited to tell you about my new book, The Cleaner. The Cleaner is the story of Esme, who travels to Ireland and begins working for 3 different houses, all in the same neighborhood, as a cleaner. Thing is, Esme's not really a cleaner. She's come for much more nefarious reasons. She believes that one of the people living in these houses is responsible for destroying her brother's life, and she's come to return the favor. Working as a cleaner allows Esme to watch, listen, do a bit of snooping, find out all the secrets and dirt of the people living in these houses. The trouble begins when, instead of watching quietly from the sidelines, Esme gets sucked in. I've so enjoyed working on this book. It has been such a pleasure. I can't wait for you to read it, and I am so grateful for your support. Thank you.
I hope you guys noticed the face in the key there. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay, big one. We're almost at the final stretch, guys. I mean, we're on the final stretch. So Antjie Krok, 9 years since her last novel. As you know, we've done some amazing things in between, but this is the one you were waiting for. Okay, it's classified as autofiction, so it's sort of autobiography. I can't really tell which parts of the fiction for me, but this one knocked my socks off. I promise you, it was absolutely astounding. So Antjie is talking about her life. Obviously, it's an autobiographical fictional novel. She's talking about her life. It goes back to the times during the struggle years and all the years that she traveled and all these things. So she is communicating with her mother. Her mother's 92 years old. She's sort of diminishing in health. And throughout the book, there are these various strands, which when you, on paper, it doesn't look like it makes sense. But when you read it, it completely makes sense. And she sort of stitches it all through really beautifully. She's such a master of her craft. So this is Antjie's story. It's the decline of her mother, Dot Serfontein, who was a great woman, great writer. And she sort of declined. How you're finding out about that, how you living through this with her is through the patient files. There are these patient files that's written every night, morning, day report, night report on Dot's health by the caregivers. And through those patient reports, you sort of can see as the book progresses that you can see her decline. I came towards the end and I was anxious because I could see this was coming. Over and above that, you've got Antjie telling you about her time during the struggle years, going over the border to Zimbabwe. She sees Breitenbach for the first time, along with a whole other people who are all in exile. And she talks about that. She talks about the actual relationship with her mother and what that was like, and not just with her, but their family and how they connected with their mother or didn't in certain points. Then there's threads of interviews that she's done with people in Kroonstad who were in interracial relationships and how that played out. So she tackles the subject of race. She tackles the subjects of land expropriation. She tackles many other controversial things. So it's such a great culmination of everything. History, it's biographical, what she lived through as a writer, what that meant for her, what that meant to her mother, what her as a writer meant to a mother as a writer. That's a really important thing. There's so many different strands that she's taken it all and stitched it up really, really tight. It's a great read. I loved it. Last year, I read 2 books, and this sort of is what reminded me of these. I read Question 7 by Richard Flanagan, and then obviously Damon Galgut. If you take those 2 books, for me, this one fell right in between those 2 in terms of the material and the style and what she's done. It's beautiful writing. It's available in English and in Afrikaans, obviously. I wish I'd read it in Afrikaans. I still might do it because I sort of know what's in there now, but I think it'll be much more beautiful in the original language that she wrote it in. And I think this will be one of the biggest books we publish this year as far as local goes. Like I said, it's been 9 years. She's amazing. I'm so glad she's back on the list this year with something as big as this. So I want you guys to just pick it up, read it, love it. It's fantastic.
Can anybody tell that Viz is passionate about this book?
Hey,
I mean,
it's easy when it's good.
Let's just give the guy some kudos. I've heard him now. This is now his 5th time that he's pitched this in front of people, I think. And it's just gotten better every time. And certainly if a book ever deserved it, it's probably this one. Well done.
Thank you. It's very kind. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
And that thunder in the background is perfect. That timing.
That's on my side, unfortunately. But hey, this is what we live with.
That's really good. Anyway, I think we should say bye to the wonderful people. Is this it?
Yes, it's been a great presentation. You guys stuck along. Thank you so very much. I want to quickly thank the marketing team and all the guys that worked so hard to put this together. I want to thank the authors. I know they might not be on there now, but they came and they showed up and they spoke, and it was amazing. And then lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank you guys for sticking it out. You're fantastic. You always show up for us. If there's anything that Monet and I can do for you, please just let us know and we'll try our best. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Monet, you have anything else?
No, I mean, just thank you. We couldn't do what we do without you. Please keep doing what you're doing so we can keep doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you in half a year.
Thank you, people.
Bye, guys.
Bye.